what you people want.
Just a couple more minutes of your time, about the same duration as the rest of your life.
Near Dark is a neo-western horror film released by De Laurentiis Entertainment Group on October 2nd, 1987. The film was written by Eric Red and Kathryn Bigelow, who would also direct the film. The film stars Adrian Pastar, Jenny Wright, Lance Henriksen, Bill Paxton, and Jeanette Goldstein. Near Dark is a movie that, despite flopping at the box office, garnered a considerable cult following in the years following its release, with its unique take on the vampire film being considered a breath of fresh air for an aging and oversaturated genre. It also was a sort of kind of not really debut of the abilities of director Kathryn Bigelow, who would go on to make heavy-hitting films like The Hurt Locker and Zero Dark 30. Couple that with a charming cast of bloodsuckers transplanted from aliens, and many people find themselves asking, how have I not seen this? But does the movie measure up to the hype? Or does its style cover up any substance? In this review, we take off into the night, searching for the thing that will satisfy our hunger for the supernatural. Just as a warning to those of you who haven't seen this movie yet, there are major spoilers ahead. If you wish to see this movie for yourself, without having anything spoiled for you, please click off the video now. Now, without further ado, let's get into it. The story begins with Caleb Colton, a Midwest farm boy out for a night on the town. While out, he runs into a woman named May. After some flirting, Caleb offers May a ride back to her place, stopping to show her his horse and to gaze at the night sky on the way. The closer they get to May's place, the more frantic May becomes, as she said she had to get home before sunrise. Caleb, becoming annoyed with her frantic demands, stops his truck, demanding a kiss before they go any further. May gives Caleb what he wants, but while kissing, she bites him on the neck, then runs off. Caleb, unimpressed with what happened, begins walking home, as his truck died when they stopped. On the way home, Caleb begins to feel wrong, stumbling and sweating as he tries to get home. The further the sun goes into the sky, the worse it gets, with Caleb's skin beginning to blacken and blister. Before he's able to make it home, an RV with blacked out windows snags him off the road and drives off, while Caleb's father and sister look on in horror. Inside the RV, Caleb is pinned to the floor, where the people inside are revealed to be vampires. They prepare to kill him, but May, who is revealed to be one of them, intervenes, confessing that she bit Caleb and that he is now likely turned. The rest of the crew reluctantly agree to take Caleb with them, introducing themselves as Jesse, Diamondback, Severn, and Homer. Jesse, the leader, drives the group out of the state, swapping cars and burning the RV before finding a place to settle. As Caleb gets accustomed to being a vampire, he is urged by May to kill someone, thus proving to the group he is one of them. Time and time again, Caleb fails, and is only kept alive when May allows him to drink from her wrist. The rest of the group get fed up with Caleb, bringing him to a biker bar where they say he will kill or he will die. The group savagely kill everyone in the bar, but when it is down to the last man, Caleb lets him go, failing to kill as the group had hoped. The group retreat to a motel, planning how they're going to dispose of Caleb, but the next morning the police surround the motel due to a tip from the survivor of the bar massacre. The vampires get into a shootout with the police, only escaping the sunlight when Caleb makes a run for the van, being badly burned in the process. The group escape to a new motel, where they finally begin to relax, now being more accepting of Caleb because of his bravery. Homer goes out for some air, only to run into Caleb's sister. After Caleb was taken, her and Caleb's father began trekking cross-country trying to find him after the police wouldn't investigate. Caleb's family is brought before the vampire gang, and a standoff ensues. Before the vampires can try to feed on Caleb's family, Caleb's sister breaks free and runs through the door, letting in the morning sun. This allows Caleb and his family to escape, with Caleb's father insisting on taking Caleb to a hospital. Caleb insists he will die if he goes there. They simply can't help his vampiric condition. After looking at the equipment in the back of the truck, however, Caleb gets an idea to try doing a blood transfusion. Caleb's father conducts the procedure, draining the infected blood while renewing it with his own. The operation is a success. Caleb is now human again. After several days of readjusting to normal life, Caleb is tracked down by the vampire gang, who take his little sister hostage. Caleb follows them into town, where he gets into a standoff with Severn. Though Caleb is able to kill Severn with an exploding oil tanker, the rest of the gang refuse to give up Caleb's sister. Though Caleb's sister is able to escape from Homer and almost make it back home with Caleb, the gang catches up to them, snatching Caleb's sister once again. Just as they are about to make their escape, though, May has a change of heart, bailing out the back window of the getaway car as the sun rises. May runs back to Caleb with his sister, and Homer gives chase. May makes it to Caleb just in time for him to cover her up, hiding her from the sunlight. The sun fully up now. Homer, Jesse, and Diamondback are all killed, burning up and exploding from exposure to the light. In the final moments of the movie, Caleb brings May back to his family farm. He performs a blood transfusion on her with his now human blood, reverting her back to humanity. The two share an embrace as May experiences sunlight again for the first time in years. So the first thing that should be known about this movie is that it's a bit slow. It takes a bit of time for you to figure out what direction the film is trying to take. But once it gets its footing and you start to understand what kind of bloodsuckers you're dealing with, this movie becomes one hell of a ride. Considering how much of this film takes place at night in country towns, you have a lot to contend with in trying to give the audience a clear visual of what's going on. Despite how much of this movie takes place in darkness, the camera work is always able to give a clear indication of who's doing what and when. It's actually pretty impressive given just how close to pitch black some of those scenes actually get. The lighting, when it does show up, also sets a pretty good tone for their scenes, with most of the interiors of buildings being lit by dingy fluorescent lights that remind you of the bottom of the barrel life of debauchery this gang has chosen, while the light of day is almost oppressively bright in most scenes, giving you a feel for just how painful it is for these beasts to deal with it, even if you, the audience, aren't being flambéed like they are. Though this isn't a scary movie, the atmosphere of it is pretty anxiety-inducing when things start to get going. Caleb, having been turned into a vampire, needs to prove his mettle to the gang if he hopes to stay alive. Because of that, every scene where Caleb is being pushed to kill and feed himself feels like a ticking time bomb. You root for him, hoping like hell he'll do what must be done even as he starts withering away from the hunger. Even after he's brought back to humanity by his father and is supposedly free of the gang, you still have that gnawing feeling that the gang won't live and let lie, which lo and behold ends up being true. Given the power difference between age-old vampires and regular Joe Blow from up the crick, the conclusion of the movie manages to stay just as tense, leaving the audience wondering how the hell a human Caleb will stand up to an enemy who's not only leaps and bounds stronger, but actually know how to fight. The practical effects are pretty well done. The makeup they use to show what happens when vampires burn makes your skin crawl with how unbelievably painful it looks, while the smoke billowing up from inside these people's clothing makes it that much more squirm-inducing. The more intense effects like Severn cutting a man's throat with a boot spur, Jesse getting a knife thrown into his open mouth, which he proceeds to rip out, and the burns on Severn after being run over by a truck add a lot of stylistic flair to the movie, making it that much more fun to watch. And the fact they have a scene where Caleb is holding a blanket over his head that is literally engulfed in flames, I honestly don't want to think about how many takes that scene took. The dialogue feels pretty natural, and it's held up by some pretty all-around solid acting. Adrian Pastar plays off the role of the good-natured but naive farm boy pretty naturally, while on the other end of the spectrum, Lance Henriksen really leans into his no-nonsense survival of the fittest touting role as the centuries-old leader of the Nomads. The absolute show-stealing performance, though, has got to be Bill Paxton as the hyperactive, bloodthirsty enforcer, Severin. Honestly, it's no surprise they stuck him on the movie poster. He doesn't get the spotlight very often, but his charming and gleefully ruthless demeanor makes sure all eyes are on him when the screen is his. He's giddy and he's careless, and while that does lead to his untimely yet cheekily reference-fused death, it's an absolute delight to watch him skip and hop through the blood with a beaming smile on his face. Even ignoring the obvious scene stealer, everyone big and small puts on a good show, with themes of freedom and independence versus love of family being hammered home effectively because of it. That being said, though, the characterization of the vampires is a bit weak until you get to the massacre at the biker bar and see how they operate as a pack. This is kind of a problem because for the first half of the movie when Caleb is dealing with being a vampire, May is the only one walking him through what to do and how. We don't get much insight into how the group is supposed to work, and we don't really get a feeling for how quick Caleb's clock is ticking until the vamps are telling him he's out of time. This of course changes when the group make a Hannibal-approved dinner out of the biker bar halfway through the movie, but as said before, it's slow going getting to that point. There's also a bit of pacing issues, mainly centered around Caleb's father and sister taking matters into their own hands trying to find Caleb. There are only a few scenes of them investigating where he went before they end up right on the doorstep of the vampire gang, with a near half-hour gap making it feel like it's just been dropped in your lap. Their presence in the movie makes sense, considering that they literally watched Caleb get abducted, but the scenes also seem to cut off a good minute before they should, making their inclusion feel kind of forced and abrupt. The end of the movie also isn't great because it kind of just happens. The showdown starts off as being pretty intense when Caleb basically has to drop an exploding truck on Severin to get him out of the way. And he was the dumb brute, so naturally, fighting off the rest of the gang is gonna be a fight for your life, right? Nope. They all kind of just forget that they can't live in the broad daylight they are in, and they decide to double down on trying to run down Caleb and his sister. The fact they just willingly let themselves get burned alive by janky CGI flames without even trying to get out of the sun feels super anticlimactic, and kinda leaves you wondering why they bothered trying to steal Caleb's sister in the first place. Also, despite establishing he would go to hell and back for his kids, Caleb's father somehow manages to sleep through the entire final fight scene. Like, come on. Even if Caleb left in a hurry to save his sister without telling his dad, wouldn't you think he would clue into something being wrong when he inevitably woke up to an empty house? Though most of the movie is pretty charming and stylish, and a lot of fun to watch, that same energy is somehow absent from the Thelma and Louise blaze of glory the vamps go for. Kind of a shame, really. The final rating for this night on the town is 7.5 out of 10. Despite being a bit slow to start and a bit questionable at the finish, this movie has the flair, courtesy of its acting, visuals, and camera work, to imprint on you. If you're looking for a fun yet chilling take on the oversized mosquito, this is the movie for you. Just don't say that too loud to its competitors.
And that will be it for today. Thank you all for stopping by. If for whatever reason you enjoyed what you saw today, consider sticking around, maybe leaving a like or subscribing if you wish. And if you have any recommendations for movies you want to see reviewed in the future, be sure to drop those down in the comments. There's plenty more to come, so if that's something you care about, I'll see you when I see you.